Hello, everybody, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to address the Forum Hydrogen Business for Climate, this important conference in Belfort. I would have loved to be in that wonderful French region together with you today, but unfortunately, I only can be digitally with you and give you this address. I am pleased to see how important hydrogen has become. And it's also very important to understand the role of Europe and to understand the role of the member states for something that happens globally, because hydrogen has become a global issue, a geostrategic issue, and we now need to find the right way of the Europeans to, first of all, stay at the same level like others, because others might have become faster, and second, how to keep on the momentum. Let me give you a figure so we can understand where we are. The Paris-based International Energy Agency, IEA, have come up recently with their global hydrogen monitor, and what they say is, yes, hydrogen projects all over the globe are getting more and more, especially in Europe. Most of the hydrogen projects, big but rather also small, are in Europe and are based in Europe and take place there. However, the FID, the final investment decision about these projects, is only at 4%. 4. That's a huge gap between the amount of hydrogen announced and the amount of hydrogen projects realized. And if we look more closely into certain technologies, in 2020, when Europe adopted the hydrogen strategy, and when the whole process of making hydrogen a certain important element of our legislation and giving it a robust legislation, the electrolyzer production in China was at 10% of global capacity. Today, in 2023, the electrolyzer capacity in China is at 50% of the global capacity, 50%. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we are risking here to repeat what we saw in solar, in battery, and to a high extent, we see it already now in wind. Are we going to repeat it again? I clearly say no, because dependency on just one geography, like we have it in other clean techs, cannot be accepted, and we will not accept it. And this is why we now need to take certain actions in order also to understand what we as Europeans can do, and I would like to share some of them with you. The starting point will be a study that has been published also quite recently by the European Commission. It has been published in July this year, and it's a Franco-German study from Artedis and Fraunhofer, and it comes up with a fantastic theory. Every study, in last instance, is a theory, saying that Europe in 2050 can be autonomous with regards to electricity and hydrogen production. Europe will be in an aggressive electricity scenario or an aggressive hydrogen scenario. In both cases, Europe will need lots of hydrogen, because even for the quite strong electricity case, you need hydrogen as baseload, as a balancing power. However, in this study, the ratio between the countries who have electrolyzers installed and electrolyzers not installed at all couldn't be bigger as between the two countries I just mentioned. So France in the study with 130 gigawatt is by far number one in Europe, and Germany with 0 gigawatt is 0. How does that come? It comes from the fact that electrolyzers should be installed for the hydrogen production where it makes sense, where the conditions are the best. And in France, we have good conditions. We have a lot of space for renewables, and we have nuclear. By the way, the second country who comes next is Spain, because of the even better conditions with regards to renewable, but missing the bigger nuclear factor. So if we really want to be strong as Europeans in this race, we have to take these things into account. We have to understand that we need to be energy rich and technology diverse. Technology diversity means that we should stop ideological approaches when it comes to certain technologies, but the time to decarbonization, so shortening this aspect, becomes the most important point. This is something that more and more enters into the European philosophy. It was not in the past. We have had fights in Brussels, also in acknowledging, accepting the French idea of bringing in more nuclear. But I think people understand that not only it's unavoidable to have nuclear in the equation, it's a given and a positive factor because it brings down the costs and it helps us to do both, become energy autonomous in Europe and to have clearly a decarbonization that can be fastened. We should also look into new elements that so far have not been part of the philosophy, which is white hydrogen or natural hydrogen. So natural hydrogen, there have been some big volumes being found in Lorraine, in the north of France, 45 million tons per year. And this is something we really need to look into because it could accelerate the application of hydrogen technology very, very fast. And it's yet another argument to understand we cannot bet only on green hydrogen. It's the most attractive, it's the most important, but it's not the only one when it comes to the color code of hydrogen, and we need to see this. But ladies and gentlemen, I just don't want to be seen as a pro-European only. We have on the program Vasil Doronin from Ukraine. We have Khaled Najib from Egypt. So people who come from other parts near Europe, but outside Europe. And we need to understand that Europe is the propelling factor, but without Egypt, without Ukraine, without other countries like Morocco, like Saudi Arabia, like the Emirates, so the whole Gulf and MENA region, like Namibia, like Australia, we will have a different and a difficult and hard time to make this hydrogen reality a fact. And this is why we need to balance out our own production, and we need to have a made in Europe aspect when it comes to the technologies, to balance it out with imported hydrogen that also will be needed. But where does the money come from? This is important to understand. The attentism, so to say, the wait and see mentality, the investment attentism that we see at the moment has to do with the fear that it's not working in the end. So we need to de-risk the investments into hydrogen technologies. How we do that? There we need to enter into new ideas. Basically, the hydrogen bank that we discuss is obviously the most important tool here. But I don't want to stop there, because the 800 million for the first pilot auction that we will launch 20th of November is maybe not enough, or definitely not enough. We need to think bolder. Let me give you one idea, final idea, before I come to the end. We had a financial crisis in Europe where one gentleman came up. It was the central banker Mario Draghi saying, whatever it takes. It was the moment in the EU where we understood there is a possibility to get out of a crisis. At the moment, we have a dependency crisis in energy. We have a climate crisis which is growing, and we need to find a way out. We need a second moment of whatever it takes. Mario Draghi has been asked by Commission President Ursula von der Leyen to come up with ideas. I hope that he inspires us all to possibly look at this way to have not a quantitative easing, but a qualitative easing, whereby infrastructure for clean tech and clean tech manufacturing and the production of hydrogen is an asset that is vis-a-vis the investment that could be done by the big financial players. And when Mario Draghi is mentioned, Catherine Lagarde needs to be mentioned. We need to look into these ideas now in order to get it going, in order to really compete with other big geographies like China and especially US, who have definitely shown that they can ramp up very, very fast and overtake. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak here. I would like to wish the Congress all success. We will all need to stick together, the hydrogen people, because we will show that we can do it, but it will be still a hard time for the next years. And every project that comes into being, every realization, every offtake will be absolutely crucial in the next months, in the next years. Merci beaucoup. Thanks very much indeed.